Welcome back to How to Be a Better DM, the show for those brave souls who let their players split the party again. In this show, we try to turn the art of dungeon mastering into a science so you can go from good to great without spending all your time, money, or relationships. I'm your host today, Justin Lewis, and over the last 3 years, me and my co-host Tanner, who's not here today, unfortunately, through 200 plus episodes, we've talked with award-winning authors, improv professionals, audiobook performers, and D&D creators, and so forth. And today, we have another special guest. We are joined by Kyle Shire. Thank you for coming on the show, Kyle. Go ahead and say hello.
Hello. Thank you for having me. This has been great.
Yeah, I've had a ton of fun so far. For those of you who are just joining us, we've kind of done some pre-show warm-ups that you can check out on the Patreon. But just so you know, Kyle is a senior producer currently for Critical Role. He's also the creator and designer for the board game Queen by Midnight. He's a writer, a comedian, and a TV writing major, which is such a cool thing. We're probably going to talk about that later in today's show. And we're just happy to have you as a guest of How to Be a Better DM. So again, thanks so much for coming on and giving us of your time, which is, such a valuable resource.
No, I really appreciate it. No, this is really fun.
Yeah. Sorry, mind blank.
You're good.
To start off today, I was trying to think of like some witty transition, but my mind completely failed me. So here's a witty
Okay, we're not there right now.
There you go. So I in this month, we're talking about performance and showmanship, right? In our podcast, we sort of break down dungeon mastering into 4 sections, right? There's people management, performance and showmanship, game design, which is kind of the mechanics, and then storytelling. And for this month, we're trying to focus more on performance and things like that. Obviously, we don't need to stick to that in today's conversation, but seeing as how you are, in your past, you've been a stand-up comedian, and that's something that a lot of people couldn't do even if they wanted to. I thought we might dig into that. So first, what drove you to even try stand-up comedy?
Oh, wow. When I graduated college, because I went to school for television writing, but I initially was going there to be an actor. I was a theater major for my very first semester because that's what I wanted to do. And through the, amazing sort of meet cute between me and sketch comedy through the Out on a Limb television show, which was Columbia College Chicago's sketch comedy show that they had on their television station. Through that, I kind of fell in love with the writer's room, and I fell in love with the creative process of sort of taking a little nugget of an idea and building upon it and expanding it into something bigger. And I also just fell in love with the camaraderie of the television world. It's very different from theater, which can be very cutthroat. In television, whether you are behind the camera or in front of the camera, it really does kind of feel like you're in the trenches. It really does kind of feel like you band together and you make the thing happen. And there's something about that that's really supportive and gratifying to be a part of. But yeah, I basically moved out here right as I graduated college, which was a big mistake because I did not have a plan, did not have a job, did not have an apartment lined up. Like I barreled out here full speed because I wanted to be a TV writer. And long story short, that didn't happen really. But I continued on. I was writing spec scripts. I was trying to meet people as much as possible, go to the right parties. And the goal that I had in mind was to basically be a television writer and then on hiatus seasons do stand-up. Because I should probably backtrack and say how I got into stand-up probably then. Yeah. When I moved out here, a bunch of my friends started doing open mics, like a bunch of my television writing friends. And so, the long story short is I followed them to some open mics and found community, fell in love with the prospect of being up there by myself. It offered something to me that sketch like sketches is a very team oriented activity in that like everybody has to be on board with your idea. And if it's super duper weird, you need to sell people on it, you know? And even if you sell people on it really, really good, if they don't like it, it's not going to get in. With stand up, there's a huge amount of freedom with that because you are the only individual up there. And so if you want to try out that weird ass joke that you don't think anyone's going to get, guess what? That audience full of strangers is going to tell you immediately if it's funny or not. There's something very powerful and freeing about that process. And I can tell you, as someone that has tried a lot of drugs out there, there's literally no better drug on earth than the feeling that you have of killing in a crowded room.
I made a monster with a challenge rating of 100. Why? Because I could. And it only took me 5 minutes using Worldsmith. And the best part? You can do this and much more. Get a free 7-day trial at sessionzerostudios.com/worldsmith and unlock their full suite of TTRPG generators. Yep, that's a full 7-day trial completely free. That's a whole week of monsters, magic items, and more. Whatever you need, zero burnout. Try it now at sessionzerostudios.com/worldsmith. Save time and make unlimited creations with Worldsmith.
Guarantee you, like any drug I've ever tried, nothing compares to that feeling of like feeling like you are connected to a room full of strangers who you do not know their names, but like they are all laughing because of you, which is cool. And I always feel like with stand up, it's less of it's less of like getting up there and telling jokes, because like stand-ups are a little bit more complicated than that. Like you're basically conducting a room full of people. And you're basically conducting them to feel certain ways and think certain things when you want them to. Yeah, there's something just so freeing about that. And the long and short of it is like I was hooked on that for a really long time. Did stand up in LA for 10 years solidly. Did stand up on cruises. I opened for some really cool people. Got to do some really fun shows all around the country. Grateful that I got to do it. It's definitely made GMing. I think that I think GMing was a little bit easier for me to break into than for some people because of stand up, if that makes sense.
Why?
Because I'm not afraid of being in a room full of people with silence and having them all look at me like I'm supposed to know what to do next. You know, there's like it's not that I don't feel that, it's that I can feel that and disregard it immediately and move on to something else, and you sort of retain their engagement that way, you know? Like I feel like there's a comfort that I think some GMs need to have with silence, because yeah, I've definitely like had that moment before where you're just kind of like, oh wait, should somebody be saying something here? And then I have to remember like, no, it's fine. This is fine. Everything's fine.
That is very fascinating. Honestly, I just think back to earlier in this very podcast when I was trying to think of like a transition, and like obviously I didn't say anything, and there was silence, and I was uncomfortable with that, and that's just such a powerful example of what you're talking about. And I think the word is presence, right? Like you
Yeah, totally.
have this presence. You know what I'm saying? And it's
yeah. No, you go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think a lot of people don't understand that, and they don't know how to create that.
Mm-hmm. I don't think you need to do much to create it. I feel like it's already there. It's already a frequency. It's a frequency you get. You just need to tune yourself to it. You know? Like everybody gets that channel.
Wow.
I mean, it's something that I think we all feel at different times, you know. It's why like, you know, I know do you ever go for like drives or like go for a walk or something when you need to like clear your head or something?
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes.
Or, like it's like this, yeah.
Yeah. No, go ahead. I was just gonna agree.
Okay, yeah, no, it's the same thing where, you might not realize it when you are sitting in there driving your car, vibing, thinking that that is presence, you know?
So the next question is slightly similar, right? It goes back to what you were saying about being a conductor. And
Yeah.
when you have presence and you are the conductor, you know the plan. Whether or not you actually know the plan, you know the plan, right? Um, and I found it so fascinating because you said doing stand up is less about telling jokes. And in Dungeons and Dragons and TTRPGs, obviously we're not here to tell jokes. We're here to tell or lead people through this story. But, sometimes you want to add comedy. So, what lessons would you recommend or give to a GM that apply this sort of conducting principle?
I think, uh, man, it sounds super duper cliche, but yes, anding, uh, choosing when and how hard to yes and something is really powerful. Because here's the thing, you don't need to feel like you are the funniest person in the room to say or do something funny. When you seek out something somebody has already said and go, yes, and also this is true. There's something about that, especially if you're doing it onto something like a little bit ridiculous. Like, there's always that moment when, like, your your player is like, oh yeah, this like big hot, handsome troll guy drops your food down at the table and he gives you a little wink, and then your players are like kind of laughing, and maybe one of them goes like, oh yeah, and I check out his butt on the way out or something, and then you take that moment and you go, he stops, he looks right back at you and goes, buy me a drink first, and then continues on walking away. Like, finding those little moments where your players may not be expecting it, um, can mean everything. And yeah, you don't have to have jokes necessarily. You just need to be listening for the right moment and knowing that's a moment right there that if I push this button a little bit, it'll explode. It'll make a nice little shape. And it doesn't need to be laugh out loud either. Also, dick jokes are always great.
I mean, to be honest, as a GM, you most of the time don't even need to worry about that. Just coming up with NPC names, you're covered basically, right?
Absolutely. I was going to the laundromat the other day, and there was a vanity license plate that just said, just Barfa. Just Barfa. And I'm like, that's it. Barfa is gonna be somebody's dad. Barfa is gonna be somebody's shopkeep.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna have so many Barfas.
That's an amazing NPC name.
Barfa. So good.
I love it. I think that's not the first time I've heard it. The idea of like, so you described it in terms of yes and. I think I actually heard it from Jay Foster, how he says you sort of, you don't go chicken, right? When your players do something, you're like, okay, let's go there, kind of a thing. Like, I'll see it and raise you to or whatever. And I think that's so fascinating. My question is, how did you start learning that?
Oof. I didn't make, my gosh, I did not make the connection between improv and Dungeons and Dragons at first. Because so my relationship with D&D was, I got into it when I was in college. 3.5 Eberron was my very first campaign, and it's the reason why Eberron is my favorite campaign setting ever to this day. Hi, Keith Baker, you're great. We love your hats. But I I didn't start GMing until I moved out here, and I think my very first GMing experience was with a bunch of stand-up comedians, and it was right as 5.0 came out. Um, And I remember, like, even then, like, after I had taken, like, I've taken all the UCB classes, I took all the Second City classes, even then, I wasn't making the connection between, like, my improv skills and how to dungeon master. Because at that point in time, like, my schema for dungeon mastering was, very much rooted in, like, having that big binder and having it down cold, all of the information in that binder. And, my idea of GMing was like, you have a module and you lead players through the module piece by piece. I think that right as, Critical Role in Dimension 20 started taking off, it sort of redefined. It helped. I think it helped a lot of people sort of reassess what dungeon mastering or GMing needs to look like and how much prep needs to go into it. And I think, like, once I think that was probably like, I mean, I hate to say it, but it was probably when I started getting into CR, as I was like seriously hoping that I got the job. Because, like, at the time when I applied, I knew what Critical Role was, obviously, but I was not a fan necessarily. I wasn't like, I didn't know any of the campaigns or anything, so, like, I started kind of getting into it real fast and stuff. And I think that's when I started making the connections that, like, wow, what they're doing is it's really good improv. Like, you're just watching really good long form improv. If you ever watched, if you ever gone to like a improv Olympic and seen like the Herald or UCB and seen like a Herald performance, it's where, an improv group gets one suggestion and then they create a sort of hour-long improv show based off of that. And it's got a format. You take the suggestion and then you have 3 scenes that are somewhat related to the suggestion, a game, 3 more scenes, a game, 3 more scenes, and then it all gets tied up in the end. It's like I was seeing that, and I think that's kind of where I started making the connection. Long-winded way of saying that.
Yeah. No, that is super fascinating. And obviously, the show here is trying to take Dungeon Masters from good to great. So, people here know about Yes and for sure. And so my question is, do you have to take like improv classes to get from good to great, or like what does that look like?
Always helpful if you want to. Not necessary at all. At all. A lot of improv classes can be expensive, and they are often taught by a lot of people who maybe wish that they were doing more. So not saying you need to do it, because you don't.
Spoiler alert, we are building an army. That's right. We're building an army of amazing dungeon masters who want to make the world of D&D a better place. If you want to join our army and fight by our side against the evil forces of boredom and bad DMing, join our Discord and lend your voice to the cause. Go to sessionzerostudios.com/Discord and join for free today. That's sessionzerostudios.com/Discord and enlist in the fight against boredom.
But I think that one of the things that helps the most, if you just want to like cherry pick something from it, when you say yes and, it goes beyond like saying yes to something and adding to it. The mechanic is deeper than that, because the deeper mechanic that is just perfect fertilizer for table vibes is a sense of agreement and trust. Because I'll give you an example. Let's can you just like let's do an improv. Let's do an improv. All right, just give me an initiation.
Okay. Are you looking for a specific scene or just like an object?
Whatever.
Okay.
Just go ahead.
Well, let's go back to your fun example. The troll has a girlfriend, and she's jealous.
And the troll's jealous girlfriend walks over to the table and goes, "Hey, he's mine. you can't have him. And then she gets with the troll and they walk out and you never see them again. And it's done. The example there is basically you are telling your player, I'm going to take your idea and it's going to amount to nothing. So you got, and versus I'm going to take your idea and I'm going to make another idea with it, and then you can make another idea off of that. So the whole idea is like when you're doing an improv, you're supposed to veer away from saying no because it's not building anything. It's not propelling the scene forward. You can do a no but situation, but the but needs to be better than what was initially denied. Do you get what I'm saying? Like it's always easier to just say yes. Yeah. Always easier, unless you are fucking, one of the Abrias or Matts or Brennans who can offer a no, but here's a better idea that you didn't even fucking think of. Just say yes and.
I love that. Sorry, I was laughing. We were just talking about butts, and I remember that the whole thing with the troll was he had a nice butt, and so it's like, I'm a 2-year-old.
Maybe he's got a nice, who knows? Yep.
I love it. So
no, boy.
What I'm understanding is that the critical part that people are missing from yes and no but is that phrase ends with a comma and not a period, but people mostly put a little period there. Is that what I'm understanding?
Absolutely. And you can, when we were doing when I was doing theater kid games, when I was in high school and stuff, we literally would do the yes and game where you would have a conversation with someone and every sentence you would say to them would start with yes and blah, 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 blah. And then you would say yes and blah, 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 blah. And you would literally just have an entire scene that started that way. And you can still do that in your head. Like if you feel like you're in a moment where a player is throwing something at you that you can volley with, literally you can say it internally. Yes, and there's a dead body in that carriage. You know what I'm saying? Like, yes, and that window that you thought was super duper suspicious, suddenly the big bad evil guy is in there. And now you know what? I originally planned for him to be in a morgue, but you had such a cool attachment to that stained glass window. He's in there now.
So obviously that requires a lot of flexibility on the dungeon master's part or the game master's part. And going back to what you said, it creates a sense of agreement and trust. How can the GM establish clear ties of trust between themselves and the players, and also between themselves and themselves? That way that sort of environment can exist. I don't know if that question makes sense, but
no, it makes all of the sense. I'll start with the obvious question. The obvious answer of how GMs can, foster trust at a table, which is, of course, start with safety tools at your session 0. Make sure that your players know that you are up to date on those safety tools, and, be upfront with people. And during that, safety tool session 0 moment, try not to push back on anything. If people are like, no, here's a line. The line is dead babies. And you can't be like, well, what about just one dead baby? Just say no. Just be like, fine, there's no dead babies. Perfect. That's a good place to start. I think the second place to start with is take what information your players are giving you in their backstory, and even if you don't plan on making an entire arc out of it, even if it's just an aside, show your players, hey, I read the document you sent me and I integrated it, and there are parts of it in this story. Really try your best to have, at least a couple moments in your games where you are giving your players at least one instance of that. One instance where maybe you're describing a dream sequence to them and you touch upon, their partner that they're trying to journey to go meet, and you see that person in your dream. Just check in with them narratively and let them know, hey, the stakes that you have in this story still matter. That is another great way to inspire trust. Another great way to inspire trust with your players is, I mean, honestly, like checking in with them for what they want with their character and making sure that it's going in a direction that they're comfortable with. I think that's always good. Just to make sure that like, you're on a good roadmap with them. And then I'm trying to think, what's another good way to inspire trust with people? Learn their names. That's helpful.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that definitely helps. I think the biggest thing is just like trying to figure out what they're trying to do and enable it. Really try to, like, if it feels like it's breaking your story, that's one thing, but unless the player is playing in bad faith, that shouldn't happen.
You obviously have good taste. I mean, you listen to How to Be a Better DM, after all. We thank you so much for your support. And if you've ever gotten anything useful from How to Be a Better DM, take a minute and rate us and review us on your podcast listening app of choice. It goes a very long way to helping our show help many more dungeon masters out there who are just like you. If you love our content, help others become better dungeon masters too. So as we've been talking, excuse me. Obviously, at the beginning of today's show, I said that this month we're trying to talk about performance and showmanship. And the more we dive into these 4 quadrants of DMing, it's fascinating that you can't have one without the other one sort of supporting it, right? Like the people management facilitates you being able to perform really well, right? And going back to this trust and agreement. So it's really fascinating that we've been talking about performance, but really we've been talking about people management in a way.
I mean, in a way, a people management and performance, I mean, it's all kind of one and the same thing. I mean, when you do stand up, you have to quote unquote read the room. That's where the term read the room comes from. It comes from stand-up comics learning how to read the room. And, one of the first things that they, try to drill into you when you're coming up is like, figure out who in the room everybody is looking to. Like figure out who everybody is taking point from. And you can almost always like find that like one person in the front row or in the back row that, kind of just feels like the room is sort of like focused on them. If you can get them engaged, everybody's engaged.
Wow.
Thought leaders.
Yeah. The gravity.
We unconsciously do it all the time.
That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
That is, I've never thought of that, but now I'm going to have to try that the next time. I mean, the next time I'm on a podcast, I'll try and figure out who's the person.
Who's the one you can do?
Yeah, exactly.
It's really noticeable in a stand-up dynamic because everybody's seated, everybody's quiet, everybody is operating under the assumption that nobody's looking at them, and they're all facing one direction. So it's really easy to kind of suss out body language wise, like who those people are in that dynamic. In like other everyday situations, it can be a little harder, but that specifically is like, oh yeah, it's like, because everyone's kind of got their guard down. Everyone is focused on one person. Everyone's focused on that one person. Anyway.
That is super fascinating. I'm gonna have to think about that. And like next time I'm DMing, obviously look for who's the player, right? Who's the guy or girl, obviously, or dog. I mean, I'm not gonna.
It's always the dog.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's always the dog.
Kyle, we've managed to get through my first question, and unfortunately, we are running out of time. But obviously,
I'll answer all of them real fast.
Well, I think we'll have to maybe have you come back some other time because there's quite a lot, and I do want to be respectful of your time. I don't want to take up too much time. Thank you so much for joining me on our show and just giving up your time. Before we do let you go, we have 2 last questions. One, it's the classic one. How can people reach out to you, support you, see what you're up to? The second one is based on today's conversation, sort of everything we've talked about. give our audience a to-do, an action item or some sort of challenge to not just listen to this podcast, but hopefully grow from it.
First question, where can you all follow me and stuff? I'm at Kyle Shire on Blue Sky and Instagram. You can follow me on Twitter if you want. I don't use it anymore for obvious reasons. Probably veering off Instagram for the most part as well. But yeah, I'm on Blue Sky normally, usually, sometimes. And then an action item for the audience. Does it have to be D&D related, or is this just an action item for your entire life or whatever?
I'll leave that up to you.
Oof. Okay. All right. Let me see if I can be clever and make it for D&D and for life. Off the top of my head. Let's see here. All right. I got one. Here's an action item, and this is GM related, and maybe I can figure out a way to bullshit it into a way that's not D&D. But D&D nerds, DMs out there, know when to call for a roll and when not to. Please don't feel like everything your players do needs a roll. A lot of them don't. The razor that you have with which whether or not your player needs a roll is as simple as, is success or failure going to make this scene more interesting? If the answer is yes, then let them roll. If the answer is no, or it would only make the scene marginally more interesting, then don't waste everybody's time with a roll. Just do it. Just let them do it. And that relates to life somehow. I'll think of a way.
Now you got me thinking. Maybe, honestly, I think about my 2-year-old when you say that, and just like letting him do certain things that he might like. Obviously, I don't want him to do those things sometimes, but sometimes you let him do the things and then you get mad at him or you tell him no or whatever. Maybe that's it, but that's quite specific to me. No, that's a good one. That's a very good one. Go ahead.
No, there's got to be some way to. I guess maybe it's learn to sit back and let your players do shit more without you interjecting. Like in my opinion, like the best times I've ever GM'd, like the best feelings in the world as a GM are when you sit back for an hour and you haven't said shit. And your players are just completely immersed in this weird little web that you've created for them. And you don't have to do much of anything. And it's almost like, why would I want to interject? Because they already have their finger on their pulse of this scene, and it's really cool. And I just want to watch. So maybe that's it. Just enjoy watching stuff.
No, I think
they don't need to roll to remember where they parked their car. They don't need to do that. It's fine.
I think that is very insightful, and for life, understand what's actually important in terms of what you actually need to do. Because sometimes you don't need to do anything, right? Maybe you are on the track or whatever, like you're doing everything right. You don't need to do anything different, or maybe you don't, whatever, just sometimes you need to sit back and watch. So I really love that.
I love it too.
Thanks so much, Kyle, for joining me on today's show. I sincerely appreciate it. And listener, the biggest way you can show appreciation to Kyle is going out to all of his socials and just showing him all the love. Give him all the follows and just, make him feel like a rock star. As a big thank you from all of us on How to Be a Better DM for joining us. Sincerely, just so awesome. To you, listener, we'll be back next time with another handcrafted episode just for you. Until then, let's go ahead and roll initiative. Brought to you by Session Zero Studios. For more information, visit sessionzerostudios.com.